is there a pattern? Is there an outbreak of something? Do we have breach Ebola? Is it spreading?
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims, and I am from HIPAA for MSPs. And joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Donna Grindle, Card and Compliance. How is it going today, Donna?
What's up? Doing great.
What's happening? Good. So we got some things that we want to do before we kind of dive into the episode today. Kind of want to give a shout out to some people and stuff like that, and talk a little bit about some things that are going on in our businesses, and then we'll dive into the topic. So the first thing I wanted to talk about or shout out to is Erin Fryer of Medical Direct Care. She has went to our website and used the SpeakPipe widget we have there to leave us a message, and so we'll listen to that now.
Hello, great show today. This is Erin Fryer from Medical Direct Care. I am calling in response to the New Year's resolutions for compliance officers. And one of the things that I found very simple that I started doing this year is simply leaving my compliance assistant on during my workday. So as I do something, I can go on and categorize it and place it where it needs to go in my compliance system.
So I like the way Erin mentions how she is able to do her compliance a little bit easier. She's using that tool, Comply Assist. I'm sorry, Comply Assistant, isn't it right?
Yes, that's better.
Yeah, so she's using Comply Assistant to keep all of her compliance and stuff done, and she's figured out just one simple way that she can make things just a tad bit easier, and that's to leave that open on her desktop so that anytime she has something going on during the day, she doesn't have to go in and log into the site and bring it up. And, it just cuts down a little bit of time. And, if you're saving yourself a few seconds or a minute or two several times a day, it adds up a lot over a week. So I'd like to say congratulations to her for finding a kind of a little hack to make things easier and where she didn't forget to do that.
Well, yeah. And the fact that, one of the things about how much crap we carry around in our head slows us down. And if you're trying to carry around stuff that you need to document, Erin's knocked it out. She's not worried about it, getting it done. Way to go, Erin.
Yeah. Woo.
All right.
Oh boy. So you had some family members over the holidays, right?
Yes. I have several family members that claimed in discussions that they either are listening or will be listening now to the podcast to support me. So this is the shout out to the family members, particularly my niece, Melissa, who said, if you give me a shout out, I will be listening. So all you family members now, you have to send me the email or Facebook, however you want to let me know you're listening, because of course I need you to prove it.
Or you can just use my PayPal account if you want to.
That's right.
If you want to prove it. And lastly, I want to, say congratulations to you and Card and Compliance on being on a live radio show coming up on the 28th of January. So you're going to talk a little bit about that?
No, well, you're calling it congratulations. I don't know. We haven't done it yet. Things could go horribly awry,
Yeah, but, something tells me that you may actually push it in that direction.
Yeah,
it makes it memorable.
We're excited that we've been asked. There's a new show on Business X Radio, Atlanta Business Radio. We'll give you a link to the website. And the host of Atlanta's Most Trusted Advisors show has asked Card and Compliance to join them to talk about why business associates might say, what do you mean I'm supposed to be HIPAA compliant? And we're bringing in one of our business associates that we work with, Patient Co. Shout out to Patient Co. They're going to come in and join us. We're going to talk about businesses that have to be HIPAA compliant that aren't necessarily expecting it and what that really requires. So thanks, Bonnie, for inviting us, and looking forward to it on the 28th. And, of course, it'll be on their website and iTunes as well on the Business X radio feeds.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to check that out live. So if you're listening to this podcast before January 28th and you want to catch that live, then there'll be a link in the show notes. And I'm sure there'll be links also to catching the recorded version as well. So if you want to see if Donna actually pays attention and behaves on the radio, or does she act like a nut like she does here?
Well, and to keep in mind that it can't be edited out.
Oh, that's scary. It's scary.
I know, and Bonnie knows me. I don't know why. She's living on the edge. I like it.
Well, I guess technically we don't edit anything either, since our editor crams it all into the HIPAA bloopers at the end of the year and then gives it all back out.
I know, really.
So we have to be careful anyway.
All right, so
today we're going to do a little flashback to last year, because 2015 was the year of the breach.
Yes.
And well, number one, we had the biggest breaches so far in history happen last year. And it seemed like literally every single month there was a fairly sizable breach happening, to the point where it's like people just shaking their heads. The bad thing about the amount of breaches we had last year is that by the end of the year, it got to the point where people weren't even paying attention that much anymore. You know, people throwing their hands up. And I even heard some of the smaller, clients we have say, wow, if Anthem's having a breach and Target's having a breach, I mean, how am I going to keep from having one? I mean, they got massive amounts of technology and employees and money to throw at stuff like that. So, how am I going to stay protected? Which is an awesome question.
Yeah, how am I going to do it? Or I give up. If it's happening to them, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. But it's, it is, I guess my response to them is that it is much easier for a smaller network to stay protected than it is, the larger ones. There's many, many, many more points of failure on the large scale than it is the smaller scale.
Well, and, it's like in our conversation in the episode with ID experts, it's when you look at breaches of PHI, it's not if, it's when it's going to happen. And the big thing you have to know is to mitigate the damages when it happens. So just throwing up your hands or saying, hey, I don't know how I can prevent it. It's, if you're doing something, it's better than not being prepared at all.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So 2015 kind of ended with a bang, really.
Yeah.
There were 22 breaches that happened of more than, of course, reported, of more than 500 records. Now, you and I talked a little bit before we started this recording that that doesn't count the breaches that were less than that, nor does it count, as far as annually, it doesn't count the breaches that have to be reported, within the reporting period after the end of the year. So there still could be many, many more things that come in. But as far as the ones that were reported, they had 22 of them that were reported in December. So it ended kind of high.
Well, those are the ones that are added to the HHS Wall of Shame. Is what we all call it. I know they're trying to change that name, but I don't know if it's going to change. Everybody's like, oh, we don't want to shame people. It's like those dog shaming videos. Yeah. But things get added there after they've been processed a little bit with OCR. I don't think it's instantaneous, but it's pretty close. And so there's things I'm sure that have been reported that aren't on there yet. And then, of course, you got the 60-day time frame. So you could have a breach that happened in November that hasn't reached the 60-day time frame either. So there's a lot more to come that actually happened in 2015. But what's amazing is when you can download that spreadsheet, the nerd that I am, I'm already starting to slice numbers for 2015. And, so, just the initial look of, 264 breaches on the Wall of Shame that are over 500. So it doesn't count anything. You could have 499 and you not be on here. And 112 million, well, let's round it up, 113 million people. Mm. Now, granted, some of those people probably in there twice. Bless their hearts.
Yeah, I know I'm in there. I was in the Anthem breach. I got my letter in the mail.
Yeah, so it's huge, and yeah, I can understand why people are like, well, I give up if I'm giving them my information. It's going to be broadcast out on the internet, or I can't give it to them, and it's unfortunate because, particularly with healthcare, it's important that a patient feel comfortable providing information to their care providers. Because if I'm holding something back because I don't want it broadcast on the internet and I don't trust you, clearly you're not able to provide the amount of care. And that goes with our, tagline you always add. It's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
Mm-hmm.
So, and here's another factoid that we've talked before about the fact that OCR says clearly any breach over 500, you will be investigated, period. It's going to happen, period. And people then look at the fact that there's only been 5 resolutions announced in 2015. Well, they added 264 additional investigations, and these things take time and they don't have the resources. They've said it over and over. They don't have the resources to manage the amount of problems that are happening. And so when people say, well, why is that so much? Well, clearly they're not fining you as much as they could because they're resolution agreements and settlements. They're not, we could have fined you $20 million. So the fact that you're going to pay us 1.3, that's a pretty good deal for you. So it's a settlement. And when you look at, they've only done 5, and everybody has been talking for a year about how many investigations are going on. These are the ones they've added, and they're resolving ones that are like 2012, 2013. So, oh my word, is all I can say about what must be in the hopper. And
so 2017, we'll be talking about all the resolutions that come out this year.
I know, really. It's like massive numbers of these things. And, they release these agreements so you get to see the details. And, we talk about, okay, how can you prevent this? How can you slow it down? And then I was thinking, all right, well, let's look at, the end in the December, some of the things that happened in December when we look at these 20 some odd breaches. And there's some that, there's some other areas that there's a privacy clearinghouse where you can look up breaches, and there's all kinds of new tools now that let you look these up. And I'll put the links on the website so that you can, see the, amount of information that's available if you want to look. But I'm looking through what caused them, seeing, is there a pattern? Is there an outbreak of something, Do we have breach Ebola? Is it spreading, that some particular thing is happening? And I'm going through these. Okay, well, when you look at it, all right, well, there's one that's phishing, and we've talked about the importance of phishing. I mean, to the point that we probably need to do an episode on it. But, well, people ask me how I keep coming up with stuff every single week for us to talk about, because we made it clear that's my job, not David's. And I say to them, just read the news. I mean, there's so many things. So it's really not a matter of how do you come up with something. It's how do you choose what to
narrow
talk
it down.
about. Because we have a list of like 20 things at all times. And it's just choosing it and putting the meat together, so to speak, so that David can talk about it.
It's like a rant.
David's rant. And we'll get to that eventually, I'm sure. So when you look at it, you got phishing, and then you got one where the FBI knocked on the door and said, oh, by the way, you've got patients hanging out in the public on the web. An email accident, I love that one, where a dermatologist accidentally emailed a list of nearly 15,000 patient name, addresses, appointment dates, and social security numbers. That's, yeah, 14,910 people in the spreadsheet. Now, this is just an independent dermatologist. So when people say, I'm too small to worry about it, you think that's what the dermatology group thought? Or the dermatologist? Because it's listed just a name. And I won't, continue the shaming. You can go look it up. But do you think that the dermatologist has been worried about HIPAA because I'm so small? My guess, knowing you and I and what we hear, is possible not so much. Mm-hmm. But then you've got snooping. A nurse was fired for viewing patients just out of curiosity. Just 827 patients over a period of time that the employee just said, wonder what's wrong with them. Let me go look.
I can spend time on Facebook, or I can spend time looking through medical records.
Yeah, the hospital blocks Facebook so that you can't share it, but I'll just go look at it anyway because I can't do Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, after all, you can't watch The Bachelor, so you got to do something for entertainment.
And then you have, you have the all-out hacks and Cottage Health, which is, we talked about them before in a previous episode on the cybersecurity stuff. That same group, after all of their problems, they hired experts to test everything because of the issues that they had with this huge breach, which that lawsuit was thrown out, by the way. The insurance company has to pay them, but don't think that's the end of it. But they found more. They found more problems with another single server that was exposed to the public internet. They shut it down and started figuring things out. 11,000 more people on a completely separate deal. So they don't know how that thing got exposed or what was going on with it. And then there was also a rash. There was a rash of these, it felt like, because we were reading them. Mailing. So you got the emailing accident. And then you look at two separate cases. One with like 3,000 and another with like 2,000 people. Because there was a problem with paper being mailed. The envelope had two statements, the right one and then the next patient. So they sent out half, what kind of, and it is a business associate. So it makes me want to know what kind of checks and balances do they have in place? Because if you're getting a list and you say, I'm going to mail out X number of statements, then I should look at how many envelopes I have on the other end, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I think you could do a little bit of math there.
Yeah. And a printing error in Blue Cross Blue Shield of Nebraska had a little issue that their dental EOBs somehow went to the wrong people. So an EOB tells you everything. That's the explanation of benefits. It's the payment information. And I don't know the details of that one, but 1,872 people. Oopsie. We've mailed your EOBs to somebody else.
Yeah. Hate when that happens. I bet you they didn't pay them, though. When it gets
I know. Well, then you're like, I didn't do this. What? And most people go right to the guts and they don't read who it is. They read the treatment first, so it doesn't help limit the exposures now, does it? And on that phishing one, it was 4 different employees in the hospital were victims of the hack, and it let the hackers in and compromise 946 records. So that phishing thing, and it's the employees, And
honestly, that's probably one of the easiest way to quote unquote hack a system is people will typically tell you or let you in.
I know.
And you're right. We do need to have an episode dedicated just to that because, I see that happen in the business that my wife works in, which is not medical. They had an incident last year, just a few months ago, that somebody called and spoke. I don't know how they got the information, but they spoke with the right person in her business or in her company. They spoke with the right person about making a transfer of money. They used the right names, so they got this information from somewhere, but they had the person to wire $250,000 to them under the pretense that it was for some product. And then 30 minutes later, they called back and said it didn't work. They didn't get the money to try again.
No.
And so they did. So $500,000 later, they figured out it was a phishing scam.
Wow.
Yeah.
It can happen to anyone. It's not just a problem.
Oh, yeah. And they got that information from somebody because they knew the people to ask for. They knew the names to use. So they got that by phishing.
Well, it's like the one we've talked about before where they fish, they look on LinkedIn and they follow information that's public. And, they'll just send something and whoever replies, the very embarrassing one where the company, the CFO was replying to who he thought it was the president and then proceeded to give away a massive amount of money. So, but they emailed the CFO and made it look like it was from the CEO. And just had enough information, but you could get it all online because people overshare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
$500,000. Seriously?
$500,000. Yeah.
Wow.
So, needless to say, there are no raises going out this year.
Sad. So sad it's funny. That's unfortunate. So we have those cases of the employees doing stuff, right? And it truly, usually it has nothing to do with being malicious. The employees are just careless. Or
and my prediction for 2016.
Oh God, here we go.
My prediction for 2016 is that during 2016 you will start seeing business associates being the single biggest problem with causing breaches for businesses. I think that's going to end up being a bigger problem.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Because number one, you're first of all, you're still dealing with the human error side of things, but you're dealing with human error from people who haven't paid attention to HIPAA at all, and in some cases don't even know anything about HIPAA.
Or they get their annual training on a video.
Yeah. So, or they argue about, that doesn't apply to me.
Good.
We handle all these other clients.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just I understand it. They're in denial. There's a lot that's changed. All of a sudden, 2013 rolls around and something gets dumped in their lap that they didn't realize. I get it. But, here it is 3 years later. HIPAA, I know within the IT industry anyway, HIPAA has been all over the place. Nobody can say they didn't know about HIPAA anymore.
Yeah, well, they can say that, HIPAA's nothing to worry about. All you need to do is run these reports.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Maybe we'll do an episode about all that.
Yeah,
too.
all you got to do is...
Yeah, fill in the blank.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's going to be the title of an episode. All you got to do is...
HIPAA made simple.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we've got those cases. We have a former employee stole records. They said, we're quitting. And then after they were gone, they found that they had over 5,000 patient records. That was a primary care center, by the by. Just note to self, primary care. It's not, we're not talking about a big hospital. Now, we're getting down here towards the end of our time, and I'm trying to save these last two for the end for a reason. Because I couldn't believe that I saw two in December with this same problem. And, look, wait a minute, they're both... And on two different...
And they're not even close to each other.
No. So you have a dental office in New Mexico and a radiology center in Fort Myers, Florida. Now, I suppose there could be an evil actor going between these two doing something, but I doubt, seriously, that anyway these two could be connected, but it's hysterically funny when you see them together. That, and it literally says thousands of dental records were scattered all over a New Mexico freeway. So it said it had addresses, insurance information, social security number. So it sounded like, maybe like a registration form or something.
It sounds like a dreaded UFP incident.
UFP. Unidentified flying paper.
That's it.
I got it. I gotcha. So you have that happening in New Mexico. And my favorite part of that one is the dental company said they have their paperwork shredded and they're now investigating this incident. They don't know what happened because normally their paperwork's shredded, which would make me want to ask the shredding company.
Hey, that goes with my prediction.
There you go. There you go. This is Business Associate. So you have that one. And then you also read at the same month that it's reported the radiology center in Fort Myers, Florida. So
that truck drove a long way from New Mexico
Fort
all
Myers,
the way
Florida.
to Florida.
Hundreds of medical records belonging to the regional center were scattered on the roads across Fort Myers. And it had financial information. It even had like old phone bills, invoices, all kinds of registration information that you normally would do at the front desk. So it sounds similar. And it said that it appears that the container the documents were in, that they were being collected for destruction by the county, opened and the papers flew out of the truck. Okay, wait. First of all, the county. So does that mean that you didn't shred them? You don't have a shredding company? You're just...
The county offers shredding?
The county offers shredding? I'm trying to figure that one out. And old phone bills? What the what? You know, somebody was clearly emptying out a whole bunch of records and didn't pay attention to what they were doing.
It was the end of the year office cleanup.
Right. So while the other company says, well, you know, we have all of our stuff shredded and we don't have a clue how all of that got there. And then you have the other group that says, well, we gave it to the county and it came flying out. But still, that means that you're driving along. And can you imagine being HIPAA people like us? And you're driving along and all of a sudden these papers come flying at you and it's like, blap, right on the windshield, you see PHI. It's like, hopefully that will not be one of those things that becomes, that would be the Ebola of breaches right there, start spreading.
Yeah.
So you can see that there's no rhyme or reason to what these breaches involve. So it's not like if I do my little risk analysis report that some vendor tells me HIPAA made easy. If I do that, how's that going to fix potential problem with your paperwork literally flying down the road? You know, and there's no way to completely assess how much of that was, you know, what happened to it. So for most of these cases, only thing you can do is have a plan to respond. Mm-hmm. And some of them, it's like you need to have more you need to have that security awareness program that you're supposed to have that's required is an element that's clearly missing.
Yeah.
Or they're not considering paper.
If you look at, any of the breaches really, but honestly, I think it's a good idea and a good practice to, maybe monthly or so, quarterly, whatever, just go through some of these breaches and see how they happened and then put yourself into that position where, okay, if it happened to them, how can we make sure it doesn't happen to us? Learn from other people's mistakes because, at the end of the day, one of the things we're trying to do is get your breaches down.
Oh, well, we're just going to let that one sit. And if you've not been a listener to our podcast in the past, listen to some other episodes that involve breaches and you'll know why that was funny. So I think that, here we are kicking off and we had our episode about gift giving guide for the compliance officers, right? And we've had our resolutions for the year episode, and clearly this is something that you need to do. And yes, we do have, we've just been dealing with a case where somebody says, look, our security, technical security and physical security is better than anything in HIPAA, so that's all we're going to do. We're not going to do the rest because we're really good at that. Okay, well, what if you have that employee that's just curious? Or what if you have somebody make a mistake and leave a server open? Are you going to be prepared to handle what that means? Do you even understand what that means? Because you're not going to do the work of making sure you're trained and prepared and making sure that employees understand the value of what's there. They don't just, well, here's some stuff that probably came in from these other guys. We're going to switch out the hard drive on this, and it's nothing to worry about. We don't have to worry about that. I'll put it in here in my office, and then we'll forget that it came off of the medical group.
Yeah.
And I need extra documentation because of medical. So maybe, and you and I both know, you get those certifications, the data center and technology certifications, that documentation is not required.
Right.
That you're expected to prove you're doing these things under HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need no stinking documentation.
Oh, man. So got a lot to think about from today's episode. Of course, it's always it's always funny when it's not your practice, so we can laugh about it and go, how in the world can you have unknown flying paper?
Yeah.
But it does lend itself to make you think, maybe I need to really think a lot more about some things that I haven't thought about as being potential ways that these breaches can happen.
Yeah, learn from others' mistakes.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. So, but that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. If you're a new listener, even if you're an old listener like Donna, you can always go and go to iTunes and give us a review. That's kind of a way that you tell us that you like what we're doing, and and we're not wasting our time here, and you appreciate it and all that good stuff. So, you can also share us out on social media, and we're on Stitcher now. So, thank you, Donna, for setting that up. So you can check us out on Stitcher. Isn't that right?
Stitcher and Google Play Music is now processing our podcast. It should be released soon.
We're everywhere.
We're trying to be.
So, and also visit us on our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. And if you want to leave a message or a question there on our site and potentially have it featured in a future podcast, you can do it right there on our homepage. And remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.